On a spring day in 1991, 5 boys mysteriously vanished after leaving home to hunt salamanders. What began as an innocent outing became a harrowing nightmare when the boys never returned home. Their remains were found 11 years later, but left investigators with even more questions. Today, we examine the haunting case of the Frog Boys' disappearance. This is Red Web. Welcome back, Task Force, to another episode of Red Web, the podcast all about unsolved mysteries, true crime, and the unknown. I'm your resident mystery enthusiast, Trevor Collins, and joining me hearing this case for the very first time, Alfredo Diaz.
You know, there's so many times where we go, what if we just found the body? Maybe that would tell us so much. And then we come across a case like this that's like, here's the bodies. It tells you nothing. I go, damn, okay, maybe having something tangible isn't going to get us as far as I think it's going to get us.
Yeah.
Also, Frog Boys, come on, man.
Yeah. It's not a good name.
Like, the three of us went missing, you know, because of ghost hunt or whatever the hell. And I don't know, we were in a tropical area and they're like, yeah, you know, the mystery of the moist men. It's like, come on.
Oh,
come on.
Can't even be the damp dudes. You got to go with moist men.
Moist men. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, we don't get to choose. We don't get to choose.
That's true. It's post-mortem.
Yeah.
We need to precog this moment. Oh, wait, no, I don't want to disappear. Hold on. I don't want a name. I don't want a name. I don't know what you got me all invested in everything. Like I was going to be some sort of mystery. I don't want that.
One, he's like, if we do disappear, we need to come up with a name. 2, you can't put it out there immediately after moist men.
I'm going to tattoo it right on my butt. So the only 2 people to see it is my wife and the news. If I ever go, wait, no, I've disappeared. No one's going to see it. This is falling apart. It's not a great name. It is a misnomer. I think to jump ahead, it is because of what they were doing when they disappeared.
Oh, yeah.
As I mentioned in the hook, you know, they were hunting salamander eggs. And the news kind of went with something shorter, and so Frog Boys became the thing. There's also a lot of mistranslation in a lot of articles and things that I've read, so there's a few names that have shifted depending on the translation you're looking at. So it's one of those things with this case that kind of, as I say, the water's murkier, I guess. You know, it just kind of obfuscates the clear truth a little bit. But you're right. I mean, there's a lot of times where we're like, man, if only we could just have this, that, or the other, it might provide an answer. And in this case, it is 11 years later. There's a lot of curiosity in this case, but when they are found, again, some details are found, but it only created more theories as to what happened. So, I don't know. This is a pretty wild one. As always, you know, every now and then we have those episodes where I want to shout out that there are sensitive topics, and we will put those in the description for anybody who likes to see those before we dive in. They'll always be there for you. But as we dive in, I would be remiss if I didn't say over at redwebpod.com, our Patreon page, this week we have a research outline going up on Wednesday. I know a lot of people like to see behind the curtain what we're looking at when we're doing our research and how we kind of pull the episode together behind the scenes. But we also have our interactive podcast, the behind the scenes podcast, Fredo, called Break Room. That's coming out on Friday. So come hang out with us. But with that said, Fredo, let me take you all the way back to March 26, 1991. 5 boys went missing in the Dalseo district of Daegu, South Korea. Now, these 5 boys were all best friends, and I do have a photo of them for you because their faces were plastered everywhere. We'll talk about that after their disappearance, but this is one such image that was shared around South Korea. So, not in the same order as pictured, I believe, but in no particular order. We have Kim jong-sik, we have ho-yeon, we have Kim yeong-gyu, Park Chan-in, and Woo cheol-won. Now, these boys were aged between 9 and 13, so they were quite young, and they all lived in the same village outside of Daegu City. The families were all quite close, as their houses formed a circle in their neighborhood, almost like a cul-de-sac, you know, where each of the houses kind of formed an arc, and because of that proximity, you know, as a kid, that's how you find your earliest friends. In fact, one of the fathers described these boys as being as close as they were, right, as, quote, closer than brothers. This is how often they hung out together. This is how often they were seen together. They might as well have been brothers, says one of the father.
I was gonna say closer than brothers. What's closer than a brother?
I don't know.
You know what I mean? I was like, that's as close as you get.
That's very close. Absolutely.
Damn. It's unfortunate that, young kids growing up as friends, hanging out. So much potential too.
Oh my God. Yeah, the potential of life. Yeah,
they could have grown up to either like represent beautiful Korean skincare routines, which are immaculate over there.
They're immaculate.
Or
I've got some sulwasu, like a primary layer that I do.
Got a little some?
I got a little some.
Oh,
I'm only dabbling though,
Okay, you dabbling. Or they could have became the next big hit K-pop band, you know what I'm saying? Shout out to
That's true.
K-pop demon hunters, you know what I'm saying?
I mean, you don't have to be bashful about it. We were talking about it before the recording. You can get in there.
Oh yeah. It's good.
I heard that movie's doing good.
Yeah, when you got female K-pop group fighting evil. How does evil fight back? With a K-pop boy band. And then maybe there's some star-crossed lovers from enemies to lovers, the classic trope.
Who's loving the demon though? I'll never say.
Hey, it's like top of Spotify right now, so everyone's loving it.
That movie's popping off in every realm then, dang.
Yeah. Dude, like, it's unfortunate because then I feel this in the sense that, like, growing up, your friends were the people that were close to you that lived in the same neighborhood. And then you just run off and go do adventures.
Yeah.
Ride around your bikes, play in the, like, jungle gyms or whatever the hell.
Yeah, absolutely.
Get into a little bit of trouble because you're just young.
Yeah, no, 100%. They're the ride or dies. They're the lifers. There's friends that I have from back home that were close proximity to me that I don't talk to as much, and then some I still talk to almost on the weekly, right? And it's devastating, and it really reminds me of a not too dissimilar case, another disappearance where the individuals were found in a mysterious circumstance, and there was a lot of questions. But the Yuba County Five, we talked about them many years back.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it's just one of those cases where it was an innocent day, right? On this day, the children had all decided to group up together and go out salamander egg hunting. This was something that was commonly done in the area, and it's just one of those kids things that you do in the 90s where you just run off and you're stomping down the creeks and looking at all the creatures that you find.
Yep.
And on this particular day, I'll talk more about it later as it becomes relevant, but I believe it was a Tuesday, but it was also a holiday. There's a lot going on, and this is why these kids are out doing something in nature rather than maybe being in school or what have you. But like I said, this was a common spring activity for children living in the rural and semi-rural areas of South Korea. Now, for this hunt, the boys decided to go to a hill close to their neighborhood, Mount ho-yeon. Now, before they set out, Woo's father recalls his son actually came back inside the home around 9 a.m., so this gives us roughly the beginning of a timeline here. And he came back inside in order to grab a thicker jacket because they knew they were going to be out and searching for these things. And for context, the historical range of temperatures in Daegu, South Korea in late March ranges from anywhere in the lows of 37 to 47 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 3 to 8 degrees Celsius, and the highs are between 52 and 61 degrees Fahrenheit or 11 to 16 degrees Celsius. So it's not freezing, but it's certainly not warm.
Yeah, I mean, you get into 35 degrees, it's chilly for sure. 60s, it's like, oh, okay, you got a bit of a breeze, you can be cold.
Right.
But
so we're talking, late morning, going into the afternoon. It's probably somewhere in between there. So it's good to keep that in mind because some of these elements kind of come up in the theories here. But
okay.
As he comes back inside, again, it's 9 a.m. local time. This would be the last time any of the parents ever saw the boys alive again.
Jesus.
Now, later in the day, Woo's father received a call saying that his son hadn't shown up for his 1 p.m. Taekwondo class. This was unusual for Woo. And now growing concerned, his father reached out to the other boys' parents. A very smart move, not something that he normally did. So he's like, well, let me think. Is he with the other boys? Because they were hanging out. And this is when all the parents learned that each of the other parents' sons were all missing. So all 5 boys now are discovered missing pretty quickly. From here, the parents contacted authorities to report the situation. Now, I couldn't get any further detail, But there was an adult, known as a friend, that had told them, the parents, that he had seen the boys and asked them what they were doing. This was sometime after they left and obviously before they had disappeared. But this friend said that the boys responded, telling them that they were off to hunt for salamander eggs, and then they continued on their trek. This key piece of information led the parents to the mountain, where they began their search for the missing boys. Again, I wanted to know who this person was. I really looked at a bunch of articles, again, with translation changes and things, and we couldn't find any clarity on who this friend was, let alone if they were living in a certain spot and said, yes, this is the direction they went.
Right.
All we know is that it kind of confirmed to the parents that they were, at the mountain.
And what if the kids were just menaces? They're like, mind your own business, old man.
Oh, man.
And then also, what the heck are they going to do with salamander eggs?
I don't know. I feel like
you're
it's
kids.
one of those
You just
things.
find random stuff and you poke at
you just
it.
kind of, until you get your phobias, you just start looking at goopy things and you go, whoa, nature's cool. This is back when you start bumping into things to learn your way around. And,
Simpler
for me,
times.
I was biking on safe driveways and stuff, but I was lucky enough to have a little creek down by the house. I go poking around the crawdads and whatever else.
Crawdads.
Yeah, I think it's just a kid thing,
Yeah,
You're just out in
completely
nature.
agree.
You're poking around gooey stuff, nasty stuff. I remember kicking what I discovered, like a giant mushroom. Again, there was some woods near our house. I kicked it and spores went everywhere. And apparently I learned it was called like a puff something or other puff thing. Because that was how it spread, the mushroom, was that something would hit it or wind would blow and it just, all this yellow spores would come out. I got into messes, dude.
Whoa, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Started patient zero for The Last of Us over here.
Yeah, I infected somebody else and then just walked on. I'm just a kid.
You gotta love and appreciate how quickly the parents moved. Fairly quickly realized to the situation, and we're jumping on it. And it seems like they're getting a search party together pretty quick, and they're also able to nail down the general direction of where they were going.
Right. Yes. All seems very promising. I do love how quickly they moved because, again, this is one of those things I key in on, especially since your reactions, when we cover these cases, you react to these elements. And anytime that the parents or whoever's involved, whatever the case might be, immediately go to the police or immediately notice something's wrong and then report it, I always love that because there are regrettably so many cases where they just don't for some reason. And each case is its own, right? But on the whole, please get help if someone's disappeared or missing or something is wrong. So I do appreciate, that the parents moved quickly. And this is now where we enter the investigation phase. So the police at first believed that the boys had run away, or maybe decided that they're going to play out late and they just simply hadn't come home yet. They're going to return soon, they were kind of saying. And this is where I wanted to get ahead of it. I wanted to get ahead because you often bring up the 48-hour rule. And so now I'm kind of your gut instincts, because I wanted to actually come to the table with some research. Why is that the rule? And what are the actual, instead of firing from the hip, what are the details with that? And so I'm going to name a few of those elements within the 48-hour rule that are relevant to this particular case. But it is said and kind of broadly agreed upon that the odds of solving a case can decrease by 50% after the first 48 hours of no solid leads.
Jesus. I mean, if the odds, it's hard to calculate the odds of a case in general, but if the odds were already at 70%, then all of a sudden it's 35%, just slicing these odds down.
Right. And a lot of that is because, memories, eyewitness reports, things like that can fade with time. They're just less fresh and therefore less reliable.
It's true.
If that friend hadn't said anything, maybe they wouldn't have been keyed in on the mountain. I know that is common stomping ground for these boys, and so it probably would be in this case, but, evidence can be lost or washed away.
Right.
And even more morbidly, this is again looking at statistics and making averages, but kidnapped children, right? In the case of kidnappings, they're often murdered in that first 48-hour window. And so there's a lot of elements that go into play for that 48 to sometimes 72-hour window, and why it's important to move quickly to close that gap, find some leads, and see if you can rediscover any missing persons. So the police are kind of saying it doesn't really seem to be much, right? It does admittedly feel like a bit of a blasé response from the police. But to help explain that is the fact that, like I said, the nation was celebrating a holiday. In fact, the nation, South Korea, was holding its first local elections in 30 years. You know, this is something in our short lifespan in America we take for granted.
Right.
But these elections were a huge step for a country moving from a long period of military rule into democracy. This was multi-decades worth of time and effort. And because of this landmark occasion, news outlets and much of the police force were reportedly quite busy or distracted or what have you. So it's not like they're trying to just be like, it's nothing, don't worry about it, and then off. I mean, there's a lot more context here.
Yeah, it's kind of a busy time, so resources are limited, focuses are elsewhere. Oh, man. It's unfortunate, too, because when you go, hey, there's kids missing, tend to see people move a lot faster.
Right.
Or with more urgency, being like, oh, there's an adult missing or whatnot. You know, people just have a soft spot for younger kids. And also it's like their intelligence and their minds and bodies, they're not as developed yet. And so, you know, if we were stuck in the woods, we have a certain level of survivability, even without any type of prior knowledge, than a kid would. Because the kid doesn't know anything yet.
Yeah. Not to mention the macabre idea that if they are, let's just say they're lost, I mean, there's so many vectors for them to be then preyed upon by ne'er-do-wells, sinister, nefarious individuals that might come across a child. Like, it gets spooky. You know, I'll just like paint a vague picture there, but that is another element to that 48-hour rule. So this was the initial interaction, but I will say it did start to kick up sooner than later, right? An official search did begin in that neighborhood, and then also the mountain, and then eventually the surrounding areas. And within the week, the story had broke and spread nationwide. And while Frog Boys is kind of a misnomer, it's almost like, yeah, you might think clickbait here in 2025, but it's also kind of important to give something a name because it gives it like the power to be remembered or talked about. Yes. It makes it, dare I say, catchy in some weird way.
I mean, it really is, though. Like,
yeah,
there's a lot of noise, especially like the internet nowadays, right? Tons of noise. Attention span's really low. People are just like on to the next thing. You want something to stick, it's got to go viral. You want something to be viral, it's got to be catchy.
Yeah.
Which encompasses a catchy headline, title, description, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, 5 boys go missing is already pretty alarming, but in a dark and sinister world, does that get washed away in the tides? I don't know. But either way, the name stuck, and it basically became a nationwide understanding that the search was on for these boys. And as you can imagine, this led to an influx of tips, people calling in how to help, maybe think about this or do this. Alleged leads came through. Of course, prank calls also came through from people claiming to be the children or claiming to have the children in exchange for a ransom. Like, every time it's like, oh, I did it. Me.
What? I have the children, give me money. But also, like, I am the child. What? How does that even? How does that we've reached levels of insanity?
Yeah, it's me. I'm the child. Like, come on. What are we doing?
That makes no sense. Yeah.
Unless it's like a kid, you know, because again, kids are innocent and kind of get themselves into messes and stuff. And so they're like, oh, hey, Tim Huckenberry, wait, let's call the helpline and say it's me. You know, like.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, I'm always dropping Huck now.
Dude, he's a part. It's going to be a mural or just a giant statue of him when you walk in. And people are going to be like,
yeah.
People are like, wow, there he is. What did he do? I don't know.
We don't talk about that. It'd be like the TVA or the Washington Monument, or maybe like Lincoln Memorial's better. It's just a giant him.
Yep.
And we just go, that's him?
That's him.
But yeah, man. So Obviously, calls are pouring in, tips are coming through. People are honestly genuinely trying to help. And then, of course, there's a few goobers slipping through. Now, here's the thing. In response to this, and we're talking, I believe within the week, the timeline gets a little blurry. I really wanted to nail down a date, but the South Korean president, Roh Tae-woo, dispatched 300,000 police and military troops to support the efforts of searching for the missing children, which, even if it's a political stunt, I don't care. That's amazing.
That's awesome.
It's a lot of people, but like, I love to see it. You know what I mean?
I mean, what more could you ask for, right? I mean, in terms of support, you want like public recognition. You want people making moves. You want a good search party. You're getting what you need there.
Yeah, unity around sympathy is never a bad thing.
Yeah.
And it was actually, you know, this is one of the more emotional parts of the story. All 5 boys' fathers quit their jobs to search full time. They wanted to be part of this search, and we've seen it in cases before. I think it's beautiful.
Oh, wow.
As much as it is like deeply upsetting. But this search, like I said, it is enormous. It is going on with hundreds of thousands of people. And in the end, this search became one of the largest efforts in South Korean history. And maybe it's a conflation of all these different moments, you know, the politics of it all, the holiday of it, 5 innocents going missing on such an innocent adventure. Like, it's just a perfect storm, dare I say, that led the nation into this unified effort. And in total, the mountain that I mentioned earlier that was nearby the neighborhood, it was searched over 500 times in their efforts. Really, really combing back and back again. Hundreds of thousands joined the search effort. Like I said, the boys' images were widely printed on milk cartons, cigarette packs. They were posted in transit spots, public transit spots around the nation. So it would almost be impossible to not hear of or see these boys. So they really did the best they could.
Right. And so, like, the crazy thing is, I think you said, you know, in the beginning, 11 years later, the bodies were found.
Yeah.
And so now, more than ever, getting this new information, I'm like, how? Where?
Yeah. And why?
There was a full-blown search party. It wasn't just like a handful of people got together or they did some light searching. No, this kind of like felt like a nation was behind searching for these boys.
Yes.
And they weren't, you know, they were eventually found. It's like, where?
Like, yeah, how did they not find them already?
Initially, with 500 plus search attempts, like.
Yeah. We'll definitely get there. It's an amazing question, so hold on to that. We're about to get into the discovery phase, but one last element to this search. I needed to do some conversions and some inflation calculations, but at the time, remember 1991, there was a reward of 42 million won set out, offered for any information that led to the discovery or anything like that. At the time, I believe that would have been $57,000 US currency. Accounting for inflation to bring that to today's US currency, that would be $136,000. And so nations abroad, task force abroad, convert to your currency if you want to know what that would be like today. But yeah, not a small reward by any means. Now, ultimately, it's unclear how long this search lasted, but as we know, the trail would run cold and the boys would remain undiscovered for 11 years. I do believe that searches continued on and off again. The official effort, I don't know exactly like how long again, that until that kind of, until they called that off or said, unfortunately, it doesn't seem fruitful. But I do believe that various members of the family and colleagues and neighbors and friends kind of continued to search throughout the months and years following. But that leads us now to 11 years later. This episode of Red Web is sponsored by Rocket Money. With prices going up on just about everything in our lives lately, Task Force, dealing with money can be quite stressful. Trying to manage all your subscriptions, track your spending, cut costs, all of it can feel pretty overwhelming. And luckily, and I use this, Rocket Money can relieve some of that stress and help you feel confident in the financial decisions that you make. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Rocket Money shows you all your expenses in one place, including subscriptions you forgot about, about. If you see a subscription you no longer want, Rocket Money can help you cancel it. Their dashboard lays out your total financial picture, including your bill due dates and pay dates and all those good things, in a way that's easy to digest, and you can even automatically create some custom budgets based on your past spending. And they're totally right. Again, I collate all of my financial details through Rocket Money, and it makes it so easy to see when money comes in and out. And if I overspend in a certain month, it has caught me on subscriptions I've forgotten about, like when a free trial triggers and goes paid. And I love the fact that I can categorize and make sure that, okay, this is grocery, this is entertainment, this is all this other stuff. It really is good. Both Fredo and I use it and have used it for quite some time. Rocket Money's 5 million members have saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, with members saving up to $740 a year when they use all the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/redweb today. That's rocketmoney.com/redweb to let them know that we sent you. rocketmoney.com/redweb. September 26, 2002. While searching for acorns, another innocent adventure here in the mountain, there was a man who discovered shoes and articles of clothing. And when he looked a little closer, this led to the discovery of the remains of the 5 boys. Now, the boys had been buried in the foothill of Mount Ho-yeon, a place that had been searched, like I said, several times over. It's unclear how the bodies were missed until this point, or how the remains surfaced or resurfaced, because it does seem that they were buried in some way, which will play into some of the theories, something to think about. And if they had been resurfaced, it could have been a situation where rain washed away the dirt, implying perhaps a shallow grave, but officially it's unclear both the how they disappeared at that spot that had been searched and how they resurfaced, right? It's kind of unknown. Now, upon the discovery, it's reported that the police made several mistakes, as we've seen, unfortunately, in many cases, while excavating these bodies. And this was due to the lack of experience in excavation and in crime scene forensics, actually. This was a topic that was talked about in Jillian's movie pick at the top of the year, Memories of Murder, an amazing movie by Bong Joon-ho.
Great one.
But it taps into this very topic. But either way, one of the mistakes they made was that when they were kind of excavating these remains, the bodies were arranged by body part instead of by complete body. For example, all the skulls would be grouped together, all the femurs would be grouped together, as opposed to saying, okay, it looks like this is one body, let's lay that aside. This is another body, let's lay that aside separately. And that immediately kind of muddies up some of the identification and things, but of course, this also made it more traumatizing for the parents, who were called to the scene in order to identify the skeletal remains.
Yeah. You got to think, though, at least at that point, you get some closure.
Right.
Right?
You at least know...
this numbing, like this constant numbing pain. Then you go through one big reopening of the wound, so that way it could actually fully heal.
Yeah. There's no what if, what could be, what is. You know what happened, and it's devastating, but yeah, there's closure in that. And while they couldn't determine who was who, of course, these are parents looking at bones.
Yeah.
The clothes that were kind of frayed, kind of decaying a little bit, but the clothes were able to confirm the identity of these boys, and thereby confirming that they had passed away all those many years ago. Now, despite the revelation, a closer look at the scene painted an increasingly confusing picture. Like I said at the top, it's rare that finding more concrete clues only creates more questions.
Right.
And this is a frustrating piece of evidence that I'm kind of burying the lead a little bit, because I just want to say it almost doesn't get addressed. So when looking closer at these remains, they discovered that there was a pair of pants that was around one of the boys' shoulders, and the pant legs had been tied together. Maybe kind of like a scarf or some sort of kerchief. I don't know.
Yeah, but it's weird because it's pant legs.
Yeah. And so when this knot was undone, there was unused bullets and an empty cartridge, or multiple empty cartridges, found within that knot of the pants around the shoulders. And there's a few more details, but each of them leads to their own theories. We're going to unfold each of those theories here in a second, but what are you thinking?
What were they, little gangsters? Like, what the hell? Like, what?
I don't know.
Dude, I would not have been able to guess that at all.
No, that blew me away when I read that.
That tells me that they came across some bad people.
It's possible. There is a theory. It's cold comfort. There is a theory that attempts to answer that. And it's kind of like guesswork. It's built on rocky foundations, but it's the only one that makes sense, because otherwise you're right. What is going on here? Who did they stumble across? What was their situation? Like, that's pretty sinister, man. Like,
yeah.
You say, oh, that's strange. They have pants tied around their shoulders. You undo it and there's unused bullets. What?
That's wild.
Yeah.
I would not ever have saw that coming.
No way, dude. So with that, there are 4 theories that I want to dive into.
Okay.
Each of them as intriguing as the last, attempting to kind of put the pieces together here. But before I dive in, as always, Fredo, do you have any like instincts going into this? Any remaining questions outside of these bullets that are really kind of like tickling your brain?
I just have no idea. I mean, maybe it's something not as wild, and maybe I don't know, because at first I was like, maybe someone came across the bodies and decided it was like, oh, I'll bury them, give them peace, and then
I do like that,
and then didn't want to get involved with like the authorities and everything, which is a little weird, but okay.
That's weird, yeah. It's definitely, I like that because it's more peaceful than sinister, but yeah.
Right. And now you said bullets in a cartridge.
Some unspent bullets and empty cartridges, yeah.
I just don't even know how to put that into play here at all.
Yeah.
I just don't. Is it so niche that, I don't know, someone with that stuff, I was trying to get rid of it, decided to bury the bodies that they came across, and then it just all got lumped in together? I don't know. It's such a weird combination.
It is.
I mean, there hasn't, unless we're really burying the lead, I haven't seen any, or I haven't heard of any indication of like bullets like penetrating bone that they discovered, or essentially that the kids were shot. But
yeah,
I don't know how to put that together. So I'm very interested to see what the theories have in store.
Yeah, that was my initial reaction as well. I'm thinking, there's a lot of soft spots. One could get shot fatally and it not mar or nick the bone in some way. And like I said, there's a few more pieces of evidence that I haven't given yet. And it's not that I'm teasing or anything. It's that I'm going to dole them out in the theory that they make the most sense for, because otherwise it'll be a bit confusing. One, I think, just given that we're talking about it, it shows up maybe in the final theory. There was a little bit of going back and forth on one of these theories as far as like over the years, this area was excavated, I believe other unspent shells and or spent shells had been found here. It could be the same thing as these unused bullets. Some translation errors kind of make it hard to decipher, but that's another little piece of evidence that might have been found that's kind of just broad. But with that, let's dive into the theories. So a day after the bodies were discovered, the police chief said it was, quote, most probable, end quote, that the boys had died of hypothermia. Hypothermia or accidental death was the initial official response from the police.
But like all of them though?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like all of them? And
again,
they're all together?
Yeah. It does remind me again in that strange macabre way of Yuba County 5 where, with lack of a better answer, it could be a situation where the boys don't want to leave somebody who's fallen ill or fallen behind. And so, like dominoes, it kind of moves through the group. But there are a few wrinkles in this for sure. In fact, there are several pieces of evidence that do debunk this theory. For starters, the boys frequented these woods often, and it seems unlikely, at least, not impossible, but unlikely that they would get lost in these familiar areas enough to not be able to make it home and therefore succumb to hypothermia. And again, I believe we all might know what it is, but basically succumbing to the cold temperatures.
Right.
Many also point out that the lowest temperature recorded during that day was 3 degrees Celsius, or about 37 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, I did a little bit of my own side research here to get a little deeper, because just because it's 40 degrees doesn't necessarily take hypothermia off the table. There have been many cases of hypothermia even above 40 degrees, let alone 37 degrees Fahrenheit, especially if the individual is wet, if they're exposed to the wind.
True.
It's less about air temperature, and it's more almost like wind chill, or the relevant wind chill. If you're wet and it's breezy, it's going to feel cold at 37.
Yeah, it's going to feel sharp too.
Yeah. So if you can't get dry, you can't get warm, and you're stuck in the elements, it can still get you. So it's not a point against it here, I would say. But the real big item for this theory is that it doesn't explain how the boys were buried. You know, there are times and cases where people seemingly are buried by intent, but nature has its way of moving things around over time. But if no foul play was involved, it's more likely that the bones would have been sitting atop the dirt. I mean, I think that just feels the most obvious, especially for search parties happening within the week. And if that's the case, they would have been found. So something's not lining up. Something's not feeling right. That also doesn't explain the presence of bullets at the scene, but we'll attempt to do that later. With all of these things in mind and unhappy with this conclusion, blessed be these parents, they demanded a full investigation into the death of the boys. They're thinking this just doesn't make sense with everything we know, and therefore an investigation was had. This now leads us into the next theory. So in real time, the police are moving their leading theory from hypothermia now to foul play, because as they're looking closer, they're excavating closer, and looking at these bones, they discovered that at least 2, some sources say 3, out of these 5 skulls showed evidence of severe blunt force trauma. A forensic medicine team from Kyungpo National University analyzed the skulls and came to the conclusion that the markings were likely from metal objects, a tool of some kind. I think the obvious conclusion that the police made at this point is that the trauma was the cause of death for these boys. And I was confused because, yes, there's trauma on 2, maybe 3 of these skulls, but what about the other 2?
Right.
It's not impossible that they took trauma to softer tissues that still were fatal, that just didn't leave evidence on the bone. Additionally, the burial suggests that the bodies were intended to be hidden, and why they were obviously not found with that great search effort that happened just a week out. And so from this, the police shifted their statement, saying that the boys could have been murdered by someone who had, quote, flown into a rage. This would be likely because it would take a heck of a rage in order to attack 5 young boys enough to do damage to the skull. It's a decent conclusion.
It's pretty brutal, to be honest.
It's very brutal. Now, given the long delay in discoveries of the body, there's no other identifying evidence, and any sort of culprit would be nearly impossible to identify, let alone track down. So it's interesting. It feels like we're so close to an answer. We might have some insight as to how they passed and that there was intent to bury, but otherwise there's so many other questions left hanging here. Like, why? What was the motive? Was it random? Was it accidental? I mean, it's a heck of a blow for it to be accidental, and then 5 times and then buried, and who was it?
I mean, regardless, it's like if there's scarring or there's like marks on the bone, then there's marks on the bone, you know? That's the takeaway from this.
Yeah.
Okay, there are very clearly marks on some of the bones on some of the bodies, and so that happened. I'm assuming also they cross-referenced it with like prior injuries and stuff, and then it's like, nope, those were non-existent before.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now this leads us now to our next theory. It's interesting, this one, because it has a little bit of South Korean and investigative culture built within it. This is where I kind of once again harken back to Memories of Murder, because in that movie, I'll kind of spill one of the little small pieces. They send DNA to American forensic scientists to analyze it because South Korea at the time didn't have that technology. And that's true to form. And we'll see that in this theory. So about 5 years after the disappearance, again, this is before the discovery, after the disappearance, a criminal psychologist by the name of Kim Ga-won claimed that the bodies were buried at the house of Kim Cheol-gyu, Kim Jong-sik's father. So one of the boys that disappeared, this this criminal psychologist is saying these boys are buried at one of the father's houses. Now, Ga-won's word was widely believed as he had been studying in the United States, and this gave him kind of a pedigree that wasn't present in South Korea at the time. This gave him, so he was basically familiar with criminal psychology in a way that South Korea hadn't properly either studied yet, or maybe culturally weren't privy to, or it just hadn't seeped into their investigation processes yet. So the question I kind of wanted to ask was, so where is this coming from? Yes, you might know criminal psychology, but why are you making such a bold claim? What's leading you to this? Well, Ga-won attributed this claim to the fact that Cheol-gyu had or could not account for 3 hours of the day after the boys went missing. Essentially saying that there was like a 3-hour gap the day the boys went missing where he had no recollection of where he was, essentially giving no alibi, which is an astute observation to make.
Right.
It's, I honestly, somebody asked me on Sunday what I did Saturday, and I blanked. I genuinely forgot. But it does mean it's worth a closer look.
Yeah.
I'm kind of interested, like, how you made the jump to say that they're buried at the house, but, they did take it seriously.
That's a big jump. And then also, you better be right. Especially because it seems like what you're saying has so much weight because you're coming back and you got all these new tactics from the States, and everyone's like, ears perked trying to listen to what your opinion is, and you're just going to throw someone into that. Like, you better have good evidence.
Right.
Or solid theory behind it, because, man, you're putting a target on someone's back.
You really are. You're turning the public against somebody. You're also potentially risking public opinion or public buy-in to the investigation efforts, which you don't want to rattle that either.
True.
So the other parents actually didn't believe this claim. I think they all knew each other well enough to say that this man is not capable of it. But the police did search his house. And I think they just got to do due diligence. I don't know if this guy's innocent or not. And so they searched his house. And what was interesting, this is very fishy. They decided to excavate at the house when they found a pair of children's shoes in the toilet. Now, this would be a strange place to find children's shoes. It would be a terrible way to get rid of evidence, especially 5 years later. But it was enough for the police to say, all right, man, this is strange. So we're going to start digging. We're going to excavate. And I'll just jump to the chase. Unsurprisingly, no evidence was found during the excavation, once again leaving this trail cold.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be anything there. Interesting. But I'm also just like, what else did you have to go off of? Didn't seem like much. I was waiting for the other shoe to drop, and it kind of didn't.
Yeah. All instinct, really.
Yeah.
Now, the unfortunate thing, at least he lived to get that closure to the case, but just a few short weeks after the boys were discovered, in fact, October of 2002, Cheol-gyu passed away from liver cancer. So we'll never really get more insight into this individual. But at the same time, my gut is saying they didn't find anything. They excavated. This was an innocent man.
Right.
But yeah, it's just kind of like, I know they got to do their due diligence, but it's just another kind of salt to the wound of a sensitive topic.
Yeah, it really is.
This episode of Red Web is sponsored by Shopify. If you've shopped online before, chances are you've bought from a business that is powered by Shopify. You know that purple Shop Pay button that you see everywhere at checkout? The one that makes buying so incredibly easy because it remembers all your settings? That's Shopify. And there's a reason so many businesses sell with it, because Shopify makes it incredibly easy to start and run your business. Shopify is the commerce platform behind 10% of all e-commerce in the United States, from household names like Mattel and Gymshark to brands just getting started. Shopify gives you that leg up from day one. They've got hundreds of beautiful, ready-to-go templates to express your brand style, and forget about having to code it all. You don't need coding. They have those templates so it can fit right in with your existing branding and aesthetic. Chef's kiss. Tackle all those important tasks in one place, from inventory to payments to analytics and more. Spread your brand's word with built-in marketing and email tools to find and keep new customers. And of course, that iconic purple Shop Pay button that's used by millions of businesses around the world, it can be yours. It's why Shopify is the best converting checkout on the planet. Your customers already love it. I've used Shopify in the past, and I have to say, it is very easy to make a website and make it look custom. Even if you're an individual, it can look like a really powerful professional website, and it can fit whatever your aesthetic is. I greatly appreciate how easy they make it to make your shop look like something big and polished. No longer do you have to compete with the giants of the world with Shopify. They can use that, by the way. It's Shopify. If you want to have that as a tagline, let me know. But yeah, I really do appreciate how easy Shopify is to use and get your sales going. If you want to see less carts going abandoned, it's time for you to head over to Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/redweb. That's shopify.com/redweb to let them know we sent you. Shopify.com/redweb. This episode of Red Web is sponsored by BetterHelp. Workplace stress is now one of the top causes of declining mental health, with 61% of the global workforce experiencing higher than normal levels of stress. To battle stress, most can't just simply wave goodbye to work, obviously, but you can start small with a focus on wellness, and therapy is a great first step towards that. I've talked about BetterHelp in the past, and I have to say I do appreciate how normal and approachable they make therapy. That is a huge part of the battle, is figuring out how you approach it, how you digest it, and also how you find the right person for you. It needs to be approachable and convenient, but it also needs to be the right person that you talk to understand your own needs with therapy. And again, that's why I appreciate BetterHelp as a tool in this endeavor. With over 30,000 therapists, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, having served over 5 million people globally. It's convenient as well. You can join a session with a therapist at the click of a button, helping you fit therapy into your busy life. As the largest online therapy provider in the world, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a diverse variety of expertise. Task Force members get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/redweb. That's betterhelp.com/redweb. Now, this is where the parents come in clutch once again. This is our final theory, and it was presented by the parents themselves. And this finally ties back to the bullets found on the remains once they were discovered. Because again, that's been nagging at the back of my mind. The more I read and looked into these theories, the more I'm thinking, we're completely neglecting this piece. What is it? It's something, right?
Mm-hmm.
So on the day that the children went missing, a friend of one of the boys, a fellow child, I should say, one of their peers, had heard a gunshot, then a scream, and then silence. Now, this is a report coming from an eyewitness who is of their age, so 9 to 13, and the parents reported this to the police, but the police did not treat this as, quote, serious evidence and believed it to be rumor. Now, we wanted to dig deeper. We couldn't find a clear answer on why this was the case, but it likely had something to do with the report coming from a child. Out of the mouth of babes comes some wild truth sometimes, but also some wild tales.
Yeah, and kids just love to talk. And wild imaginations, unfiltered. They don't quite know the world yet. Like, I mean, I get it.
So here's the thing. It feels like it blows the case wide open, but also we know we're dealing with an unsolved case. So get this. I've been holding on to this. I really wanted to say it like at the top, but it just kind of muddies the waters. I have another image for you. And what you're looking at here in this new image is a military shooting range. It is for the Republic of Korea's 50th Infantry Division. It was located nearby. And so you have the site of the children's bodies and you have the site of the firing range. I believe to the west, as this picture shows, if up is true north, that is where the villages are, but I might be mistaken on that. Either way, in at least one of the articles I read, this shooting range was about 300 meters or 984 feet away from the boundary of the range to where they were found. But I couldn't find hard, consistent evidence of the distance.
Still, that's fairly close.
It's very close. Absolutely.
That's very close. I mean, did they accidentally? I mean, look, a bullet will travel very far.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, did one of them accidentally? Okay, so did someone miss a target down the range? Bullet kept going at one of the children, and then they decided to take out the children. Very, very grim.
Yeah. Yes.
Quite evil. Like, all right, we'll take out all 5 children to cover this up. Damn. Like, I don't know what else to say, but damn. Like,
no, you're taking the notes right off my page. It's essentially that. That's kind of what was theorized is that somebody at the shooting range, or potentially a rogue hunter, a stray bullet, all of these angles happened, right? A stray bullet from somebody, shooting range, rogue hunter, just somebody, struck one of these boys, and the rest were subsequently shot to disguise the crime. I find that very hard to conceive, but there are a lot of nefarious people out there that might do that. And so they did that in order to get away with it, because they said, even if it's an accident, I'm going away for this, right? And now what makes this so much more intriguing, frustratingly, this feels like, okay, cool, at least we know it was a horrible accident. Maybe we have an answer. But we don't really. Because what is with the blunt force trauma marks from some sort of metallic edged item striking 2 or 3 of these boys in the head? Is that this is how I'll take out the other 4? Maybe.
I mean, that's what I was gonna get at. I'm like, yeah, what if that's how you take out the rest of them?
Yeah. Oh God.
You strike one or a couple, and then you're like, then you gotta take out the rest.
I mean,
it's gross.
Listen, man, if you accidentally shot them and your goal is to take them all out, why you gotta do it like that? You've got a weapon that can be painless in your hands if you're gonna go do some sort of crime like that. But what makes it like frustrating, beyond the obvious, is that the shooting range was down that day. I mean, again, it was a holiday, and it was shut down for the election. So no training was said to be performed at this shooting range. And, while this kind of sinister theory might answer why the bodies were buried there, interestingly, there was no bullet holes found where the remains were. And sure, trees can heal over, dirt is malleable, but I think what's important, and again, some of the articles with translation issues have different details, but if memory serves, if I'm not just wrong, I don't believe there was any spent casings. The boy around his neck with the tied pants had unshot bullets as well as some empty cartridges, but there's no shells. And so this person either, oh God, was it a melee attack because they didn't want shells on site?
Yeah, it could be.
Then this paints a very intentional picture.
Exactly.
This is...
The thing too is that sure, there wasn't any shooting or anything that's supposed to be going down that day, but it could have been someone that was like, I don't care about this day, and then has no disregard for, I guess, rules and regulations. It goes to the firing range. They're already kind of someone that's more inclined to not. I mean, that type of person is more inclined to do these overly heinous things compared to someone that's like, I follow the rules. You know what I mean?
Right. A regular, healthy person. Yeah.
And so,
not a murderer. Jesus.
It's gross, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I mean,
it's rough.
When I start thinking about it more cynically, it does paint that picture, especially with the context historically of this military ruled state slowly transitioning into democracy. Who's to say there wasn't some sort of holdout, some aggressive or aggroed ex-military or current military individual who was like you said, I'm not here to celebrate this day. I don't want an election. And so, and they're off kind of being angry and mad and just take it out on the innocent. I think the curious piece that will forever remain curious is the bullets tied around the pants, the unspent bullets. It would be weird for the murderer to do that. But again, there has been rumors. I really wish I could give a solid yes or no one way or the other, but I did read, at least in a few articles, that because of the shooting range, this was an area, yes, that people went and did salamander egg hunting consistently, especially these 5 boys. But I had also read rumors that this was a place where, much like a golf course, kids would sometimes collect bullet casings. And so maybe, in some weird twist of irony, these boys had collected a cartridge that had bullets in it that fell out or had over time fallen out of the cartridges, but maybe over time that, I don't know. And so maybe it wasn't the person that did it. It's just a misdirect, strange clue to an otherwise innocuous thing that kids locally did, you know?
Honestly, good point. Because even now I go, whoa, if I found a bullet casing, I'm like, that's wicked, you know? As a kid, I would be like, whoa, look at this. I want to go grab some. It's just a boy being a boy, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. It could have literally just been the fact of like, you know what? They were just out. They collected them like they were trying to collect the salamander eggs. One boy had a bunch of them, tied them, put them together, and then they just succumbed to the weather.
Yeah. Yeah. Dang. Now, what's interesting is that in 2006, the statute of limitations expired on the murder of the boys. Part of me, just reading this, held out an inkling of hope that some a-hole was just like, I can say it now, I did it, and we could all collectively hate them. But nothing like that ever happened. But interestingly, in 2015, the National Assembly voted to abolish the statute of limitations on first-degree murder charges, allowing for a trial if any new evidence or suspects ever came to the table. I think that makes sense. I don't like the idea personally of like, if you murdered somebody with intent to be like, I just gotta lay low for 15 years and then suddenly I'm essentially innocent.
Right. Doesn't make any sense at all.
Especially in this case, it's hard not to be a little emotional.
Mm-hmm.
But part of me, man, I just was like, I wanted it to be like a happy ending where, okay, 2007 comes along and they're like, fine, I'm innocent because of the statute of limitations. It was me. And then in 2015, they go, got him.
Yeah,
you know?
That's true. Where it's like,
that would have been nice.
That sweet spot where it's like, come forward, you're fine.
Yeah.
And just kidding.
Yeah, man. Oh, I don't like, when I did the first research pass, I kind of like, there's something, a cold comfort in being like, it's kind of unknown, but now that we kind of talked about it a little bit more, you kind of like found some nooks and crannies to explore on the gun range theory. I'm just kind of like, oh man, yeah, and that really paints an evil picture. It does go back to the homicide foul play theory, right, just with more specificity, but whew.
Yeah, it's kind of gross.
Right, well,
or could
very gross.
Could have been. We don't know.
Could have been. Either way, I mean, deeply upsetting. But this has been the pretty infamous case of the Frog Boys disappearance. Any other thoughts? Any other like? I mean, you know, we always come away, Fredo, with like wishes and woulda couldas. But I feel like, man, I gotta say, I'm very proud of what these parents were doing with their instincts and reporting this, looking, searching, being loud about it with like, no, I don't think that's right. I don't think that makes sense. And I appreciate that the police and investigators were on top of it with them. But so I can't really think of, outside of a footprint being found or things happening and being found like within that week, like what else would help this, you know?
No, I think they did everything they could have done. It's just unfortunate. And then here we are. And
yep.
I don't think we'll ever truly know what happened to these 5 kids. I do like the theory of like, hey, like they were just out trying to collect some stuff, being boys, and then they just succumbed to the cold.
Yeah, there's something more peaceful about that.
And then someone came across them and then buried the bodies and then just didn't want to get involved, you know? They found some bodies and it was just like, hey, I want to be respectful. But then that would have been within a week because
would have been quick.
Like, I don't know, man. It's weird. It's a weird one.
I mean, again, I'll say it again. It's kind of cold comfort, but it's more peaceful. And it takes the same jump and assumption, right? Like a little bit where, I mean, if somebody accidentally shoots somebody, yeah, you're kind of guilty, but at the same time, if that whole situation is stumbled into, but if you are in the woods and you stumble into 5 boys that had passed away in some mysterious way, and now you're there trying to wake them up or something, I can see how that person would also feel, oh my God, am I going to be guilty because I'm the first person to see this?
Right.
So maybe do they bury it rather than report it? Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of nuance here, but yeah, yucky. Well, like I said, the disappearance of the Frog Boys, unfortunate nomenclature, but I do think it helped at least cast that wide net. It became using modern terms, viral awareness of this disappearance and almost a nationwide effort, essentially. Now, pivoting, shifting pace, kind of palate cleansing, I do want to say, Task Force, as always, you have been phenomenal. We're recording this one quite in advance, so we haven't even done our stream yet, so we're on the other side of that. But you guys have been so amazing. As we now in real time come up on our 5-year anniversary, it's so cool to have you guys on board and supporting us at redwebpod.com. And to thank just a few of you specifically as the names scroll over our faces. We've got Gorefront, who is our newest member, so welcome to the Task Force. We've got Big Dogs as a buff scientist. Thank you for slanging and banging. And this week's hit list for Fredo, the Squonks of the Week, we got Holster, G, and Zarathustra, just to name a few. All right. And with that said, Fredo, I'll see you right back here next Monday for yet another mystery.